Good day everyone, and welcome to the channel. It's Londononion here with another Back 4 Blood critical comparison. And the weapons we'll be comparing and contrasting today are the Phoenix 350 and the BARRETT M95 snipers. Now just some housekeeping before we dissect these weapons. It is important to state the parameters of this critical comparison. First, because of the versatility of deck builds, such as the ones that precede this video, weapons can be morphed into variants that increase strengths or balance out needs according to one's playstyle, and will only complicate the comparison. So deck build potential will be of minimal consideration. Second, comparison will take place under two main themes, bare bones and fully kitted, which will be explained as we go through the comparison. Lastly, the weapons will be compared based on their common rarity, just for consistency and simplicity. However, I am aware that performance scaling between rarities may create different results if compared at higher levels. At the end, I will state my preference, and I would encourage anybody with opposing or agreeable views to share which of the two weapons they prefer and why. With that, let us get started. To begin our comparison, we're first going to be analyzing the weapons from a bare bones perspective, meaning absolutely no attachments or modifiers of any kind. As usual, we always look at the stats of our weapons first, to have a brief, though incomplete idea of how these weapons may perform. Looking at these two weapons, they match each other in 3 of the 5 regards, but differ in firepower and handling. The BARRETT is stated to be superior by 5 units, maxing out firepower at 100 units. Meanwhile, the Phoenix rifle is stated to be superior in handling by 15 units, sitting at 45. Naturally, as you guys know, we'll have to investigate further. Looking at firepower, it is easily noticeable that the BARRETT dominates over the Phoenix rifle with 132 damage units per shot. The Phoenix rifle, however, inflicts 90 units of damage per shot. For those who have been following our weapon comparisons, you'll know that we cannot stop there in judging firepower. Although both weapons are bolt action, there is a stark difference in their fire rate. The Phoenix rifle takes approximately 4 seconds to empty its magazine, while the BARRETT takes approximately 7 seconds to empty its magazine, and both weapons hold 5 rounds. When reloading, the Phoenix rifle will take approximately 3.5 seconds to reload. The BARRETT surprisingly takes around the same time, to the point that any hair-splitting difference is likely inconsequential to the overall damage output under practical circumstances. With these numbers in mind, we'll continue our assessment on firepower. The magazine damage easily goes into the BARRETT's favor, as it inflicts a grand total of 660 damage units per magazine. The Phoenix rifle, on the other hand, will inflict 450 damage units, but will do so faster. So the ultimate question is whether the Phoenix rifle's speed will be redeeming enough to surpass the BARRETT or fall behind with continuous fire. Over a minute's time, with the numbers that we have, the Phoenix rifle will inflict a grand total of 3,600 damage units. The BARRETT, on the other hand, will inflict 3,960 damage units. Ultimately, this means the BARRETT will do greater damage, shot for shot, mag for mag, and over time. Now, this is not to say that there are no advantages to the Phoenix's speed. Now, things become tricky with mutations because fire rate will play a significant role in how quickly a target can be eliminated. Now pay attention, as this will be rather number heavy. With our earlier numbers, the BARRETT will fire at intervals of approximately 1.4 seconds per round. The Phoenix rifle will fire at intervals of approximately 0.8 seconds per round. So this begs the question, how significant is the head start for the Phoenix rifle over the BARRETT? The Phoenix rifle's full cycle for shooting and reloading is approximately 7.5 seconds, or 0.5 seconds longer than the BARRETT takes to empty its mag. This means that the Phoenix rifle will have 3 seconds to begin its subsequent magazine, and with 0.8 seconds per round with bolt action time, the Phoenix will inflict an additional 360 damage units, or 4 rounds, since the first round takes no bolt action time to fire. Accumulating this with the first magazine damage, the Phoenix rifle will have a total of 810 damage units before the Barrett can begin firing again, and just after the first round, the Barrett will accumulate its damage to 792 damage units. After another 0.8 seconds, which would be the time required for the remaining round of the Phoenix rifle, the Barrett would only require another 1.4 seconds to deliver another 132 units of damage to a given mutation, creating a grand accumulation of 924 units, which is slightly over the Phoenix's 900. Now, these numbers are extremely important when discussing mutations because the toughest mutation is the Bruiser variant of the Tallboy family, with 800 units of health, in which case, the Phoenix will overtake the Barrett when against a Bruiser. Looking at the other mutations, Crushers have 700 units of health, meaning that the Phoenix will also win that battle due to the speed of its damage accumulation. Regular Tallboys come with 600 health. Due to our damage numbers and firing time, the Barrett will take the victory. The new and mean Ripper Tallboys come with 550 health units, which again will go in the Barrett's favor since the Phoenix rifle will cap at 450, and the Barrett will eliminate the Ripper with all 5 rounds. Moving on to the Stinger family, Hawkers have 80 health units, and provided the Phoenix is within its maximum effective damage range, it is a tie. Stalkers have 120 health units, and the Barrett will take the victory. The Stinger comes with 90 health units, which is automatically a draw, provided that the Phoenix rifle is within its maximum effective range. Otherwise, the Barrett would automatically win. The Urchin has 65 health units, and also results in a draw. Moving on to the Reeker family, Wretches have 250 health units, and assuming both weapons land their first shot, the Barrett will require another 1.4 seconds or 1 additional round to eliminate the Wretch, while the Phoenix would require an additional 1.6 seconds to hit the 270 damage unit interval, giving the Barrett the victory. The Exploder is a similar story since it has 200 units of health, which will require the same amount of rounds for each weapon. So the Barrett takes the victory. The Reeker has 450 health, and this works in the Phoenix's favor since the Barrett will take 4.2 seconds to eliminate the target, and the Phoenix will take 3.2. Keep in mind, the first round takes no time at all. The time between subsequent rounds is where the time adds up. Lastly, the Shredder has 300 health units, and this will give the Phoenix rifle the victory since it will take 2.4 seconds, or 4 rounds, while the Barrett will take 2.8 seconds, or 3 rounds, to eliminate the mutation. So that gives a slight edge in the Barrett's favor for eliminating more of the mutations efficiently with a score of 5-4, not including the draws or the damage drop-off scaling with range. Now, there are some significant caveats to this, but we aren't on the practical uses of these weapons yet. Now, we had to delve rather deep into firepower because the other stats have effects that are ultimately less significant to the weapon's performance aside from range, which we had already touched on. There is technically a difference in accuracy based on crosshair spread in the Phoenix rifle's favor, which does increase its reliability with hipfire. Handling is barely worth mentioning, since both weapons are bolt action and already provide a healthy lull between shots and eliminate a need for correcting recoil. The only other area that handling may help is with weapon swap speed, but that will be a later discussion. Additionally, no weapons are affected by natural sway. Moving on to the fully kitted side of the comparison, weapons will be dressed and discussed based on their attachments of need, since the attachments are consistent and will garner the same results if the weapons are dressed congruently. The practical use of the weapon, however, is where the heart of the discussion lies. A fully kitted weapon, meaning all purple or higher attachments, will garner very different results for each weapon. Now, in this onion's opinion, adding attachments to a weapon is mainly about compensating for its shortcomings rather than competing with another weapon of comparison. So for barrel attachments on the Phoenix rifle, I would say one's best option is a suppressor. The suppressor naturally decreases enemy awareness of user fire but also increases damage against unaware targets. For the Barrett, I would employ the same attachment, as all others in this onion's opinion aren't really a need. Moving on to magazine attachments for the Phoenix rifle, I would say one's best option is Extended HP Mag, which buffs magazine size and bullet stumble by 50%. Without gold attachments, I would prioritize bullet stumble over magazine size to make easier work of mutations. For the Barrett, I would employ Extended Fast Mag for a buff in reload speed and magazine capacity. Without gold attachments, I would prioritize reload speed to reduce the longer bolt action time. For both weapons, sights really come down to the user, and I wouldn't say increasing mobility is a particular need of either weapon given their class. Depending on one's playstyle and preference of proactive play, either an ACOG or high zoom scope will do, and add on to the strengths of both weapons for weak spot damage. Lastly, the stocks, I would dress both weapons similarly based on sights. If using ACOG or a high zoom scope, I would employ a competition stock or light competition stock for increased ADS speed. If one prefers using reflex or hollow sights, then prioritizing weapon swap speed would make more logical sense, as the weapon is prepared for closer and more reactive engagements, which I would say should be reserved as an option for the Phoenix rifle for versatility. Now when it comes to shooters, I tend to enjoy a sniping / high damage / proactive role the most, so I took great pleasure in playing with these weapons. As high damage bolt action weapons, they are generally light on ammo, provided one is not abusing it, and they fit a relatively niche playstyle of prioritizing key targets. Despite this, one is naturally more niche than the other in regards to dishing out damage, and there were a few key areas that we needed to touch on during our bare bones discussion. Looking at our damage numbers and timing differences when evaluating their effectiveness against the various mutations, that comparison did not take into consideration weak spot damage and corruption cards, which will naturally increase in frequency as one progresses through their act or plays on higher difficulties. Not to mention, deck builds can also alter these numbers. Additionally, a noticeable difference between the Barrett and Phoenix is their stumbling capability. Both weapons are pretty good in this onion's opinion, but the Barrett is far more reliable, and in practical terms only increases its efficacy against mutations. Armored mutations, ferocious / monstrous corruption cards, and mutations that generally like to charge into a group of cleaners are best halted with stumble or evasion. Although the Phoenix has greater speed, sometimes mutations are too close to take advantage of this. Not to mention, user error also occurs. One other aspect to consider is the hipfire reliability. Snipers are weapons of damage, precision, and proactivity. Although hipfire can be employed, and is warranted at times, I would barely call the Phoenix's crosshairs much of an advantage, as such tactics are best reserved for point-blank range with both weapons given their attributes, and this tends to be in either emergency circumstances or when a single ridden manages to creep up to close range. With all that said, the Phoenix seems to have greater flexibility against both ridden and tough enemies, and may even have an advantage against multiple mutations due to its speed. Both are niche weapons. One is just super niche to the point that it might be superfluous, without the presence of bosses to take full advantage of its capabilities. If the Phoenix is a man, then the Barrett is a man's man, but how often is that really required? Additionally, with deck builds, the Phoenix can potentially be upgraded to perform as a man's man, and the Barrett to a man's man, which again will only beg the question, how often is that required? Difficulty selection may also have a bearing on answering this question. But now, for our verdict. From the bare bones perspective, considering the practical aspects of both weapons and the role of snipers, and this is the important part, I would give the Phoenix rifle the victory. This one was difficult to come to, but what ultimately influenced the decision here was both how close the weapons are in performance and the flexibility of the Phoenix, which has greater priority during the early stages of a given act. The Phoenix still fulfills its role as a sniper, but can also take on Ridden and mutations as they tend to occur simultaneously, with less delay in bolt action and swap speed. Granted, when using niche weapons or playing more appropriately to a given role, team maturity is also important. When fully kitted, both weapons had high performance, not even including a weapon-centered deck build. However, I would give the Barrett the victory. Corruption cards separate the weak from the strong, and a mature team, which includes a clear understanding of roles and of course game sense, demands efficient and effective performance of one's role. Armored and ferocious mutations will sometimes chuckle in the face of a fully kitted Phoenix rifle, especially if there are multiple with said corruptions. The Barrett is among few other weapons that can consistently stand up to tough mutations, and with a faster reload and increased ADS speed, it is a perfect deterrent to charging mutations even at a distance beyond 22 meters. Again, a mature team is what makes a niche weapon work even better. Plus, it will be even easier on ammunition. Naturally, this means that a less mature team will demand more versatility from its party members. And just to make sure we have a consistent understanding, I'm using maturity as an umbrella term to describe one's general understanding of roles, navigation, character and weapon attributes, Ridden/mutation deterrent tactics, resource management, and ultimately collaboration, as this is a team-based game. Now, I know deck builds can make alternative possibilities, but because of how versatile decks can be, that is a conversation far too complex for a discussion like this. But I'd love to hear from you guys as to what your take is on this comparison. Do you prefer the manly and flexible Phoenix 350, or the manly man's Barrett M95? And if there are any disagreements, I welcome critical discussion, so feel free to leave your opinion on this comparison. But otherwise, that concludes the discussion. Thank you guys for joining me on this one, and in our next video, we will be moving on to character builds and discussing roles using my own personal designations for cleaners. So stay tuned. It's been Londononion, and I will see you guys next time.